All right, AJ, we've got another opt-in on our hands today. I want to talk to you about the prospect's inbox. I think it's something that can get overlooked a lot, especially, in the tedium or monotony that can happen as an SDR. You're really focused on your outreach and less focused on where it's going, if that makes sense. But I think taking into consideration how people tend to go through their emails, how people organize their emails, times of day they look at it, things like that can be really important. So I'd love to hear from you, maybe some of these strategies. Since you're a director of marketing, sort of as a prospect yourself, how you tend to go through your inbox when you do get a good chunk of SDR emails on a regular basis. And then B, what kind of strategies an SDR might be able to use to show up at the top of the inbox to get you to notice them, to sort of disrupt your normal pattern there.
Yeah, you said something that made me think of, like, let's get into the mind of a prospect. Anyone who knows that video, if you know, you know. But yeah, so as someone who gets prospected, like, far too often for being honestly not as important as I think a lot of people think I am, I get a ton of SDRs reaching out to me on a regular basis. And if I want to stay sane and I want to stay productive, then I need to look at my inbox as a to-do list. And I know I'm not the only person out there with this sentiment. It's a pretty common, I guess, like, methodology or sort of like time management tactic to make sure that you stay on track for whatever you're doing for the day. And so I didn't realize this until far too late as an SDR. So hopefully as an SDR, if you're listening to this now and you're early on in your career, you can learn from mine and Alex's mistakes. But think about it like this. If I log in to my email in the morning and I see a bunch of prospecting emails that have come through, maybe from like the West Coast, because I'm on the East Coast and they came in after I logged off for the day, or they came in really early in the morning. And then they're mixed in with a bunch of like internal requests, some meetings that I have to go to for the day. What do you think I'm going to prioritize?
Internal.
Probably the internal stuff, right? So I have sort of like 4 buckets that I look at when I go into my inbox. I've got the immediate to-do items. So those are typically internal emails, things that I have to do like at that moment. Usually tasks that are like under 5 minutes. There's that idea that, like, if you can do it in under 5 minutes, do it now, because then you'll keep pushing it off and you won't do it. So those are the things that I do first. Typically that's like scheduling a meeting with someone internally, routing MQLs, just getting somebody internal a message that they need. Like, those are the things that I do immediately. Then it goes down into some long-term to-do items. So if I have emails in my inbox that are kind of just sitting there unread, I know, Alex, you do this a lot as well. They're like reminders for yourself, right? Like, oh, I need to respond to this person, or, oh, I need to set up this call agenda, or get out this podcast outline. Those clutter up my inbox as well. And they sit there for a reason, because eventually I have to do them. Then they're the prospecting emails, and those fall into buckets 3 and 4. Bucket 3 is like, I've looked at it and I think it could be intriguing, but I don't have time for it right now. So I file it away into a separate folder, where at a certain point I go through and kind of read a chunk of them, respond if I need to, or delete the ones that I don't like. And then bucket 4 is just immediate delete, where like I look at it and I'm like, yeah, this isn't for me, and I'm just going to delete it and not care about it. That's how I set up my inbox. Not everyone does the same thing, but I look at it like a to-do list, like a lot of other people do. And essentially what you have to take away from that is, like, you're always going to be lower on the totem pole than things that already exist on my to-do list, or new stuff that's cropped up internally. So knowing that, you said it best. How can you disrupt like my typical pattern of going through buckets 1 and bucket 2 to push your email that might fall into bucket 3 or 4 up in my priority list? That's how I handle it. I don't know if you have a similar way of like handling your to-do list. Or
yeah,
sorry, I just assume it is a to-do list.
No, I'd say it's similar, but maybe less structured. I just really I leave things as unread if I have to do them, and then everything else just kind of gets read or marked as read. A lot of times I don't even open it. I think that's my bucket 4 is I'll just go, because I like subscribe to a chunk of newsletters that I'll like sometimes read in the morning. So a lot of times it's just like click, 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 click. mark as read, never even opened them. As for prospecting emails, I do think there's something important to thinking about what kind of emails show up into someone's inbox every day. So for me, if it's like, whatever my typical internal stuff is that's going on, and then someone sends me an email with a subject line related to one of those things, like something that I actually handle, I'm much more likely to at least open that and be like, oh, why is this person reaching out to us about our marketing automation solution or something like that? Versus, if they send an email that's with the subject line that's not relevant, or it's like one of those really catchy ones, I'll immediately recognize it and, probably mark it as read or delete it or something. Something you said was interesting is that third bucket you have, because I don't think a lot of people have that bucket. Yeah. I think a lot of people go straight from like, it's not an internal email, I'm deleting it. Do you have any strategies for maybe what you would want to do as an SDR if you're reaching out to someone who you think is just like immediately deleting every email you send them?
Yeah, we talked about this actually in a podcast with Ethan Butte. Sales kind of relies on two big factors, and these aren't the only things, but I can really use them as like the two pillars. It's relevance and timing. And if you send me an email that immediately in the first, in the subject line and in the first preview text, the first 40 to 140 characters, depending on what email you're using, in that space, if you can show me that the email is for me, that it relates to what I do on a daily basis, and that it's in some capacity personal. Sam McKenna is really big about the show me, you know me. If you can do that in that short space, you've got me. I will either A, file you away because I think it's relevant to me, and I don't have time for it now, or I'll open it and I'll react to it in some capacity. But if you don't do that and you don't hit me in that space, you're going into the delete bucket. Similarly, if I take a look at it, and I kind of alluded to it, but if timing is on and I open it and I happen to have 5 minutes to take a look at your email, that's great. If my timing is off, then you're probably going to end up in bucket 3, the read and react folder that I have. So you kind of have to balance those two things, relevancy and timing, knowing that obviously timing is less controllable than relevance. The point being that in the subject line in the first 140 characters, if you can prove to me that what you're trying to sell is relevant to my day-to-day, 100% of the time, I will either read you or file you away to read you later. If you don't do that, you get deleted. So that's like the number one thing I think all SDRs should take away, is that if you want to move up in a prospect's inbox and get prioritized, you have to show them that you've done your research, that what you're selling is relevant, and that it's personal to them in some capacity. Because to be honest, the sea of bad prospecting is only going to get bigger, and my inbox is only going to get more cluttered. And if you don't stand out and you can't prove to me that you're worth my time, you will get deleted. And it might be a little harsh, but it's kind of just the fact of the matter. It's just reality at this point.
All right, AJ, 15 seconds. Tell everybody about opt-in.
Opt-in, quick 5-ish minute videos, actionable sales development tips, minimal fluff. You can find us on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on our Instagram, and on the website, demanddrive.com.
This episode's been brought to you by iOS 16.
Yeah. Thanks, Apple.
Now you can change the font of your clock.
You can mark text messages as unread, which is actually incredibly
super important. I'm never going to forget about a text from my dad again.
Thanks, Apple, for mending Alex and his dad's relationship.